Hi, welcome to all the participants. The header for this workshop is Reconciling ERM and Insurance. It's really a pleasure to see the interest in this topic of this workshop. My name is Lene Ritz and I will be acting as a moderator during this session. And I do hope we will have a 1.5 hour very interesting together. I would like to start with the housekeeping rules. You will be muted in the session, but you can use the chat box at all time. As we will have a polling session, please do engage by voting. And note that there will be a slight delay in answering and the result because of the virtual techniques. Questions can be submitted during the whole workshop and will be answered during the Q&A session. Before progressing, I would like just briefly to present myself. I'm working in Energinet, a public-owned company where I'm responsible for the enterprise risk management program and the insurance program for the group. I have 30 years worked with financing options, insurance, loans. The work was within the various of sectors and countries. I passionately believe in the synergy between enterprise risk management and insurance and how the ERM processes can be supported by the efficiency on the insurance side. This workshop will give you reflection on how to drive more synergy out of a closer collaboration between ERM and insurance. The respondents in the firma survey expressed concern about changes in the insurance market. Specifically, 88% of the respondents holds this concern. We have seen a big turnaround in the insurance rate, and it has become a hardening market after a 10-year soft period. This means that ERM methodologies for identifying both insurable and non-insurable risk has become even more important than ever. The firma 2020 survey also shows that the ERM managers are to a greater degree than insurance managers more often represented in the top management. How can we reconcile the two worlds even more? Furthermore, the firma 2020 survey shows that 1/3 of us is working solely with ERM, 1/3 with insurance, and 1/3 with both. This situation calls for a coordination, a closer relation between ERM risk managers and insurance specialists. To reflect exactly that, we have today 3 speakers representing those roles. Then we have first the 3 speakers going on the floor. We then have polling questions, and finally we have a Q&A session. The gain of this workshop the session is that we get more insights and strengthening the partnership between ERM colleagues. We will be selecting topics to focus on within the ERM process and improving our work by taking advantage of the ERM outputs. It's therefore an honor for me to present, on behalf of the insurance role, Pauline Davost, who is a global head of insurance and risk management at Gate Gourmet, which is in the aviation and food industry. Pauline has since 2016 been a board member of the Swiss association SERM. Pauline will relate to the cooperation between ERM and insurance seen in the light of the hardening market. Our second speaker, on behalf of the ERM role, will be Adriana Cavalier, Corporate Risk Manager at SCAYS in Belgium, a public company in charge of safety on air traffic. Adriana will talk about ERM as a key driver to determine the overall risk profile. Adriana has since 2015 been a board member of Belrim and is a member of the firma Sustainability Committee. Our third speaker on behalf of ERM and Insurance is Thomas Christensen. Thomas has since 2017 been head of enterprise risk management of Christian Hansen, based in Denmark, a company that, amongst others, develops solutions for the pharmaceutical and agricultural industries. Thomas is a board member of DAREM and will talk about the experiences on the coordination between ERM and insurance. And I'd just like to say that the full biography of the speakers can be seen on the dedicated web page. Now I would like to give the floor to Pauline. Pauline, will you take over from here?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Lene, for the introduction, and thank you, Ferma, and my colleagues, Adriana, Thomas, and Lene, for welcoming me in this panel discussion with such a large and virtual audience, which is a first for me. Today, my presentation is called "Is Good Insurance Cover a Luxury?" Indeed, prices are increasing, terms are tightening, and capacities are diminishing, and there's COVID-19. How can corporate insurance risk managers stay resilient in these challenging times? This year, we have seen that COVID-19 has not only tested our preparedness to business contingency and crisis management plans, but also tested the quality of our insurance coverages. There are still significant gaps in our preparation and mitigation strategy to catastrophic events, and the investment necessary to build resiliency are still seen as short-term costs rather than long-term value creation. As an insurance and operational risk manager, my main tasks are risk prevention and mitigation, as well as the purchase of insurance. In the past months, I have seen the insurance market hardening across all lines of business. Each company needs specific cover, and at the same time, we need to keep all stakeholders satisfied on subjects such as budget, compliance, operational requirement, etc. Certain decisions have to be made which, without proper understanding, could leave us exposed to risks unknown and not known. We have all perhaps recently heard and read the following. Pandemics simply are not insurable risks. They are too widespread, too severe, and too unpredictable for the insurance industry to underwrite. Which leads me to my second question. Can we split our risk exposure between insurable and non-insurable risks? The global insurance protection gap, so the difference between insured losses and economic losses, has increased to more than $1 trillion globally. And this gap continues to be bigger with the increase in the frequency and severity of extreme NatCat events, the threat of significant cyber attacks, and pandemic risks. In parallel, the public debt ratios in many countries have climbed as companies have not adequately anticipated and protected against high-cost perils, and they have underestimated the likelihood of such events and shown limited understanding of their own exposure, and they have counted too much on government to pick up the losses, creating moral hazards and tendency to dismiss such perils as being simply uninsurable. What is or is not insurable is a matter of perspective. As a risk manager, I was educated and trained to believe that anything is insurable if you are willing and able to pay the premium. There have been many events such as the 9/11s and terrorism, Katrina and flood, salmonella and product contamination, which created exposure that some deemed uninsurable or underinsurable due to the insurance industry inability to underwrite the risk at the time. Any risk not transferred through insurance is already self-insured by default. So the motivation for businesses to figure this out are quite high. Companies will have to find a way to spread this contingent liability from their balance sheets in order to develop long-term businesses, plans, and secure financing. I see three ways to achieve this: across policyholders, across time, and across exposures. However, this is not always easy. If we take the example of COVID-19, this is very hard to split across policyholders, as they all have a risk of suffering a loss at the same time. Across time, If we knew for sure that pandemics were 100-year events, we could calculate the premium easily. While we don't know the frequency for future events like COVID-19, it is hard to reflect this. Finally, across exposures. Anyone who has ever purchased a package liability policy knows how this works. You work to calculate a specific premium for the auto, commercial general liability, and workers' compensation risks until you realize it's just easier to underwrite and price for the entire package of risks. Not only COVID, but also the recent technological development and globalization have shown us that there are threats which can significantly hurt our business in many ways. However, if we take the cyber threat as an example, do you know if your cyber or your other insurance at its current stage cover your company for this kind of threats? And if not, are you able to carry the risks by yourself? This is a task which perhaps was carried out in the past by everyone, but on a more theoretical and less practical basis, meaning that I know today that I have cyber issues with respect to hackers, but I do not know how the hackers will attack me and how the loss will develop, and if my current insurance will cover, and if yes, to which extent. Now, going to the third point of my presentation regarding the art solutions, the combination of the recent market hardening and COVID-19 has made the traditional insurance coverage expensive. Alternative risk transfer solutions, also called ART, have now become the fashionable risk management tool, and it is important to note that in the past, the inefficiencies of traditional insurance significantly contributed to the development of ART solutions. The commercial insurance market is characterized by a strong cyclical pattern. Periods of high premium and limited availability of cover alternate with periods of low premium and easily available cover. From the insured point of view, this influences the need to purchase insurance. There is no stability in the premium. ART product can partially insulate corporation from the volatility of the underwriting cycles by means of increased self-insurance, multi-year contract, and the substitution of risk transfer with risk financing or using capital market as risk carriers. Secondly, companies face a constant and rapid changing risk landscape, going from structural changes in the economy, changing in the legal environment, and the emergence of new risk classes. This alteration to the corporate risk landscape lead to shifts between the traditional lines of business, a push forward in the limit of insurability, and the development of hard products which are better suited to manage new risk classes that are not yet dealt by traditional markets. Art solutions are complementary rather than substitutes of the traditional insurance product. There must be a realization that a risk is a risk, and as such, it must be treated as such. The very basis of insurance is to provide risk protection. Based on this, can the cost of art covers be justified and demonstrated to your senior management? Probably yes, but they are in principle very specific and limited to special risks. If, however, there is more and more demand for it, will it become mainstream, and will the cost become mainstream as well? And what will be the cost? This is the reason why risk is and remains the focus of discussion. The COVID-19 pandemic has challenged the organization's ability to manage risk effectively and change the risk profile of most businesses. Variations in government and regulatory advice, the need of customers and business partners, and employees' way of working have changed and still continue to change. It is now very important to understand the impact of these changes. Rapidly assessing which risks are rising in importance, the likelihood of them becoming significant issues, and their potential impact and complications. In doing so, it's important that risks continue to be viewed holistically. In many organizations, some employees in second line are being asked to focus on the crisis, and the regular managing risk controls have become secondary. This is why a strong risk culture is needed more than ever, as front employees are currently pushed to make effective ethical and risk decisions in their day-to-day work. From my perspective as a risk manager, any discussion about risk is a good discussion. Whether a company is going through a prosperous or difficult time, it is of great importance that there is a good communication and education of risks across all functions and levels of the company. This is only this way we will be able to know potential weaknesses and threats, as well as the gaps in our coverage. And with changes comes opportunity, right? As in all situations, risk and opportunity are two sides of the same coin. While risk culture is going through significant change, there are several opportunities to intervene and shape or reshape the culture and definition in our company going forward. And we can reshape it by joining forces and take the best of ERM and insurance function, which can both benefit from each other. So far, it was not always the case, since there was obstacles either in the way the departments or functions are structured or in the way they perform their daily tasks. And as a conclusion, cooperation and efficient communication between ERM and insurance has become key for success and survival, and it can help the entire industry deal with events such as COVID-19. And now I would like to answer the question, is good insurance cover a luxury? As the market is hardening across all industries and lines of business, it is easy to think that it is just another cycle which will eventually end, and those who can will buy their way out of it, and those who cannot will just be further exposed. However, I believe that we should always keep in mind that it represents for our company's operation and what recent and past events have taught us. So we should continue to focus on optimizing our covers, searching for the best solution, and truly understanding our exposures to known and unknown risks. Thank you very much for your attention. I now hand over back to Lene for the transition, and I look forward to the speeches of my colleagues Adriana and Thomas coming next. Thank you very much.
So much for your views, Pauline, on behalf of insurance, touching on risk alternatives, and also remembering us on that risk and possibilities goes hand in hand. Very interesting. Now we will hear the focus on the ERM perspective in relation to the strategy and objectives. So I will give the virtual floor over to Adriana.
Line, for the introduction. Thank you to all the participants for joining. And thank you, Pauline, in particular for your valuable insights, which I can only echo. The world of enterprise risk management, or should I say the new world of enterprise risk management, something is going on out there, something is changing. As mentioned by Pauline, we are confronted with a changing business and insurance environment, an environment requiring a more proactive and enterprise-wide approach. On top of that, COVID-19 has challenged us, emphasizing the importance of an overall preparedness for emerging highly unpredictable risks coming with a major impact and with major unknowns. So our future will be one of well understood and well and clearly defined mitigation strategies, insured and non-insured. Let's embark on this enterprise risk management journey, your future. How will this future be characterized? So today's hardening insurance market has demonstrated the importance of even better understanding and timely anticipating risks. It's about evolving from buying insurances towards selling well understood, and I underline well understood risks, internally as well as externally. supporting the realization of your organization's strategy and objectives. Insurances are and remain important, however, not enough. Forward-looking financial planning and strategic risk and crisis management are entering the corporate resilience scene. So, how to approach this new future? First, it is about knowing where you are going. It is about moving from the short term to the long term. And last but not least, as also mentioned by Pauline, building the necessary risk foundation. Knowing where you are going. Why bothering? Because not knowing where you are going is a risk in itself. I think that there is no doubt about it. Knowing where you are going matters. Knowing where you are going is important as to remain relevant and focused, and it is necessary in the realization of ambitions in line with stakeholders' needs and expectations. What is it all about? It's about getting the basics right, understanding what is important, what obstacles are there on your way to the goal you are aiming for, and how you will cope with it in a timely and active way. As important, it's about having your seat at the table, at the right place, at the right moment, with the right people, in and around your organization. Your organization today is not only the inside of the organization, it's the whole world around it as well. As mentioned by Pauline, communication is important, so it's also about talking the right language. And last but not least, it's about cooperating and co-creating, as also been mentioned this morning during the plenary session. How often do we also read that risk management is about good risk identification, risk assessment, risk mitigation, and monitoring and communicating? However, by doing so, we are aiming at something, but we are forgetting a very important part. We have to know where we are going before we start identifying risk. It's about setting the scene, establishing the context. It's about understanding what matters to your company. As an example, I can give you that seen the news lately that hurricanes, like hurricanes in Florida, can have a major impact. So they can come with a major impact, but notwithstanding their severity, if your company is located in Belgium, in Antwerp, and you have no direct or indirect relation with Florida, so these risks, notwithstanding their importance, do not matter. So it's about looking for what matters to your organization and focus on that, bringing on the table the uncertainties that matter, that might impact your strategy, and you will get the conversation. So as important is to clearly define what will impact your strategy and how. In other words, are your risks well understood and well described? I repeat, well described, allowing you to sell your risks internally and externally. By selling an attractive risk, being a risk that is well understood and well managed, being a risk that matters, you will be able to go the extra mile. And not to forget, with the growing diversity of risks and ongoing globalization, risk can no longer be handled in isolation. So I repeat here again, proactive cooperation and communication with multiple stakeholders, which does also go for the cooperation between ERM and insurance, bringing together the best of both worlds. But There is more. Doing the right thing, unfortunately, is not longer enough today. We have to go long term. We have to go beyond. As COVID-19 has taught us, we have to embrace changes and embrace the new now. Embracing these changes and adapting practices will be key. We have to go the extra mile. We have to go beyond traditional risk management and deploying enterprise risk management as a business enabler, supporting strategy and value creation along with corporate resilience. It's really about shifting from the traditional post-strategy risk management to the pre-strategy risk management. It's about being involved in strategy setting, about being there where your company is going. How can we do so? It's by looking ahead and by adapting practices. Our process of just going for the likelihood and impact is a good one, but it won't always work. You will have to tap then in new skills. So you have to be agile, improvise, since there is no such thing as one size fits all methodology. We have to learn to look in many unknowns, assumptions, trends, horizon scanning, early warnings. In other words, you do all recognize here scenario-based risk management, allowing you to understand what could change the envisaged strategy outcome. It's about forward thinking, allowing to combine short-term crisis management and long-term strategic management in view of your reputation, corporate purpose, and social responsibility. So don't just assume that there will be only one future. COVID-19 has learned us that the outcome of a strategy can change, so anticipate on that. Try how difficult it may be, but look for the game changers, be prepared and be agile. Understand also how these game changers will need to be considered into your strategy. So as I mentioned, try to be in the pre-strategy risk management part of the strategy setting, looking forward, and so trying to find out what it could impact and what investments will be needed to be prepared for when a major crisis will hit you. So these will be future or our future challenges. How to overcome our new challenges? It's by embedding risk management within behavior, attitudes, and norms. So it's about building a strong risk foundation. Let's say it's a new way of approaching, it's daring to challenge the status quo. Building a strong risk foundation should be seen as the Olympic minimum for a risk management, as an enabler of value creation, as an enabler of resilience, of excellence. So it is needed. You can't do without it. Such a risk foundation, according to me, should be based on three major building blocks. So a well-defined and structured risk approach, a strong leadership, and an enhanced risk culture. Good policies and practices are important. However, this is not enough. So strong leadership and commitment are imperative. Those who have attended the webinar on the risk report know that this is very important to me. So I'm happy to repeat it. It's about leadership at various levels, so top down and bottom up, with clear roles and responsibilities. and I suggest to follow the 3 lines of defense as a good basis. And very important, based on a clear risk management strategy. A risk management strategy written by the risk manager, but more important, supported by senior management and the board. Your board has to get into risk management. And as mentioned some months ago during a webinar of ECODA, the European Confederation of Directors Association, the board will have to consider a new way of working when talking about corporate governance and board qualities. Companies should consider a risk committee, forward-looking, alongside an audit committee, focusing on past and present. There is also a need for different qualities supporting effective enterprise risk governance. Education of board members on ERM will be needed. And then the future will be a different one. Also for the board, new challenges. The future will be about how to walk your talk. A new dimension of governance, which will become more important than reports. All this will only work with the last point mentioned on my slide, being an enhanced risk culture, which means that risk management has to become part of your company's DNA. You have to think and act risk management. There is also the need for one risk language. Keep it simple, let it be clear. It's already difficult enough, so at least keep the language simple. And then enterprise-wide communication and stakeholder approach. As I said earlier, it's moving on, it's becoming more complex, you can't do it on your own. And last but not least, there is a need for a conducive risk management environment. And when saying this, I also say that it is your responsibility as a risk leader to create this conducive risk management environment. Walk the talk, be a partner at various levels, top down and bottom up. Forget ticking the boxes and develop your how skills on top of your what skills. Tapping into your how skills comes natural for those who are passionate about risk management and for those who make their passion their profession. So combined with leadership, you will be able to go that extra mile on this risk journey. And today, I am very pleased and honored to reveal that the magic word for your successful risk journey is tango. So, it's with great interest that I have read Dr. Hilson's article, Risk Leaders Need to Dance Tango, and those who know me also know why. It's about leadership effectiveness based on Argentine tango as a metaphor for the leadership strengths and skills needed to succeed in business. So this magic is to be found in 5 essential characteristics. First of all, trust. So each dancer in Argentine tango must trust the other completely. Risk leaders must also be trusted to engage stakeholders in the risk process. If the risk leader is not trusted, their risk advice will be questioned or even ignored, leading to unmanaged risks and also missed opportunities. Agility. The Argentine tango has a basic sequence of steps, not difficult at all. But the dance is completely improvised, combining various elements spontaneously, as determined by the leader. The same is true for risk management. While there are many proven techniques and tools in risk management, we all know, but there is no one-size-fits-all risk methodology. Risk leaders must be able to combine the elements of risk management into a more, let's say, cohesive approach that meets this beautiful risk challenge. This demands agility and the ability to improvise, both on the part of the risk leader and also on the side of the organization, as they move together to address the risk of the company. The third one is naturalness. The tango embrace between the dancer is not rigid, but relaxed. In the same way, risk leaders are to engage with stakeholders in a natural and normal way without being too formal or too bureaucratic. Stakeholders in your company should feel that you as a risk leader are a caring professional who want to help them achieve their goals. And then guidance. A good dancer is one who transmits a feeling of the music to the partner, leading them effectively throughout the dance. So will the risk leader communicate to all stakeholders. This allows all parties to move together to address effectively with a shared understanding of the risk challenge. And then last, the ownership. It's not possible to dance Argentine tango in a detached way. Dancers are connected through the embrace, and each is fully committed to the dance. Risk leaders must also take care not to become detached, but demonstrate ownership of the risk process. In the same way, other stakeholders need to own the risks and the responses and to be committed to manage them effectively. So, having said this, apparently, dancing tango will allow risk leaders to maximize their ability to lead others into effective risk management. They may also improve their dancing skills, but however, not guaranteed. So, I can only say now, thank you all for embarking together on this great ERM journey, or should I say tango journey. And bear in mind, risk management is not a destination, it's a journey, and you will be on it forever, or as said by Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman, if you get all tangled up, just tango on. Thank you. Lene, I could go on forever sharing my tango passion, but I have to admit that now I'm really curious to learn more about Thomas's tango view.
Thank you so much, Adriana, for presenting the ERM journey as magic. I can only agree with you. And also pointing out that a common language is very important, which we all know that we also can be supported by or learned by the RIMAP certification. So extremely enlightening, Adriana. And now we will go over to our third and last speaker, Thomas, who will address the coordination and strong partnership between enterprise risk management and insurance. So, Thomas, may I leave the floor for you?
Thank you very much, Lena. First of all, thank you for the introduction, Lena. Paulina and Adriana for making this a great team and already provided us with some valuable points. And well, especially to you, Adriana, thank you very much for the invitation to a tango. Being a former elite ballroom dancer myself, indeed, I know what it takes to dance a tango, and a perfect tango can only be performed by a perfect couple. It's actually a very good metaphor to underline my point that a successful risk management needs to be performed by the perfect couple, enterprise risk and insurance. During my presentation, I would like to give my insights into the values we're protecting, which is actually quite important to understand. We need to look into the different approaches to risk management, both from an insurance perspective and an enterprise risk perspective. And then finally, how and why the two functions need to cooperate. And here I have some practical examples from my own backyard. Contrary to insurance, enterprise risk, as we have heard both from Adriana and from Pauline, it's not a function or an activity, it's a mindset. it must be part of our decision-making process and how we do business in general. So as the understanding matures, eventually risk management, enterprise risk becomes integrated into the organizational culture. It's enhancing the risk culture, just like Pauline and Adriana actually mentioned. This is the main difference between enterprise risk and insurance. While enterprise risk is a set of defined processes and a mindset, insurance management is an activity, and I will explore this momentarily. So, nevertheless, both functions will benefit from the increasing risk awareness in the organization, which is the first sign that the partnership is important. So coming from an enterprise risk domain, I've spent much time looking into how does enterprise risk actually provide benefit to the organization. Also, as was mentioned, so it's sellable to the senior management, to the board. We actually provide value to the organization. So if we take a step back and look at the definition of risk, we can define the risk as the potential of gaining or losing something of value. So we can gain something of value, or we can lose something of value. It's a result from a given action or inaction, foreseen or unforeseen. So what are then the values we are protecting? So besides ensuring that we achieve our strategic and business goals, it can be defined as first of all, our ability to keep earning money. I think we can all agree to that, but it's an important value to protect. Secondly, it's our ability to keep our production running, our ability to be able to deliver our promises to our customers, avoid a business interruption, a delay. Third, we ensure compliance, so we do not lose our operational licenses and knowledge. Fourth, which is really an important value today, protecting our brand and reputation, which is crucial for most organizations. We've seen that with the terms of shitstorms that hit companies today. We really need to make sure that all risks are identified and known in order to protect our brand and reputation. And then fifth, which is probably the most important, that is to ensure people safety and consumer safety. So as I said, enterprise risk is about protecting that something, known or unknown, predictable or unpredictable, that can jeopardize our values. To a certain extent, I sit in a finance department. Of course, all risks can be quantified. However, we also need to focus on those non-quantifiable risks, such as the loss of value through diminishing our brand reputation, lack of compliance leading to citation and prosecutions, and so on. So we need to go we need to go beyond what is just insurable risks. So I'd just like to build a little bit more on what has already been said about the two different mindsets. And I'm really trying to, please accept this black and white portrayal here, the two different approaches we work and manage with risks. So if we take the traditional risk management approach, we see that the insurance manager may also be the risk manager. The accountability of working with the risk may even also be placed with the insurance manager. And then we can ask ourselves, is this the right placement for accountability? The standard risk mitigation, its name is to purchase insurance cover, so we cover our financial losses we may face should the risk materialize. So it's all about protecting the financial value of what we lose. It's a well-known process. It's been working effectively for decades. Usually follows a defined routine leading up to the annual insurance renewal. And then when assessing the potential loss, it's usually very silo-orientated by collecting data from particular departments. So at least my experience is that there may be a lack of holistic approach. If we then move on to the enterprise risk management approach, the objective is to capture all risks that can impact the values we are protecting. So we go beyond the insurable risk, as both Adriana and also Pauline spoke about. The risk manager becomes the facilitator. The risk ownership rests within the organization with a person who is actually empowered to take actions and do something about the particular risk, ensure risk mitigation is implemented, and so on. So as I mentioned earlier, enterprise risk is not an activity, but it's an integrated process. The deliverables is not a particular service. It's not, for example, that we can show that we have bought an insurance, but it's a continuous assurance that we manage our risk exposure. We cover all types of the all types of risks across our organization. eventually to ensure that we succeed with our strategy and fulfill our business objectives. Still earning money, still be in the business. As Lena said, I would like to talk about the correlation between enterprise risk and insurance. And what I would like to do now is provide some experience and thoughts that I have on the partnership between enterprise risk and insurance management, because we really do need each other. And again, this is some practical examples. So, talking from an enterprise risk perspective, the objective is to really understand the risk, as Adriana just said. So we make a holistic 360-degree cross-organizational assessment of the risk. In order to manage the risk, we really need to have an understanding of the risk, like Adriana said. So we need to break down the silos. We need to involve all relevant stakeholders to participate in the assessment. And by building this strong enterprise risk network, involving multiple stakeholders, including, which is really important, the insurance management, enterprise risk will have a much broader reach within the organization. And this is going to contribute to a clear understanding of each other's purposes and objectives and strengthen the partnership. That's a second sign that a partnership is important. And one focus area that benefits both functions on a daily basis is to ensure that risk management really lives in the organization. It's not just an activity, but it's part of the business processes. It's part of our culture. From an enterprise risk perspective, risk mitigation is really not just about insurance coverage. It's also about developing procedures, practices, ensuring proper crisis management setup, as we've seen during the COVID-19, and also effective business continuity programs to reduce the impact of damage we can do to our values. For example, the production and being able to deliver to our customers. Nevertheless, of course, insurance coverage is one of the tools in the enterprise risk mitigation toolbox. Personally, at the Christian Hansen Group, the mandate from the board is to look at very concrete, specific risks, also from an enterprise risk point of view. We have to look at risks we can actually do something about. So during the past couple of years, obviously I've had a number of risk sessions, and I've created a risk register of enterprise risks that can all jeopardize us in achieving our strategic and business goals and damaging our values. Some of them are very tangible, for example, shortage of critical supply material causing a major business interruption, or fire or flooding at our largest facility in Copenhagen, while others are more strategically and compliance related. If we start off with the fire and of flooding at our largest facility, it's two separate risks, as we need to look at them because it's two different concrete and specific risks. Of course, the immediate risk mitigation activity is to ensure proper insurance. So here we apply our property damage and business interruption PDBI insurance. We know now that we will be covered the financial loss. The payout will cover the construction of our new facility. It's going to cover our lost revenue due to the business interruption. Great, we've got the money. And in 2 to 3 years, we'll have a new factory. What's not to like? We'll have a grand opening. Hopefully all our valued customers will come and celebrate with us. But when the day comes, where is our customers? We may have been a world-leading producer before the accident or before the event occurred, but already on day one, we'll see our customers went to our competitors and started to do business with them. Why? Because they need to continue their business. And 2 to 3 years down the road, why should they come back? They have now set up the entire process for ensuring their business continuity with our competitors. So why should they come back to us? So insurance is not enough risk mitigation. And as we have identified the risk, we have this 360-degree perspective, we now understand the risk better. That means we move further down the risk mitigation activity and see we also need to have focus on business continuity. This involves complete overview of our value chain, so we know how much we can move to other production sites. So if we're not able to, if we're not able to deliver 100%, by moving through our production facilities, which customers and products should we prioritize? And could we get access to production capacity elsewhere? For example, I know it sounds, but buy in at a competitor who may have excess capacity? Question mark. All of this is consideration and agreements we can already do today. It's easier to do them in peacetime than it is when we're actually facing the crisis. And so through our risk management process, we're now reducing the interruption to our business. By doing that, we reduce our risk exposure, not just for us, but also the risk the insurance companies is taking. Because we know that the PDBI, the property damage business interruption insurance, is still going to cover the building of the new factory, as well as the expenses we'll have in order to sustain our production. So we consider that insurance is a critical mitigation. However, it just doesn't solve all our immediate problems. So having the business continuity set up, now we're in a position at least to deliver something to someone. But we can do more. Because we know our risks and we've been working with it, we can actually start to do some infrastructural changes to our site. For example, at this particular site that is located close to a bay, hence the risk of flooding, we've conducted a number of simulations of various NatCats of 5, 10, 20, up to 500 years events. And that input is, of course, being integrated into the upcoming master plan, where we, for example, could incorporate significant risk mitigation in the initiatives. For example, to install, to develop an underground parking facility, which could be used as a basin, should there be a flooding and overrun of water. Some of these analysis was actually partly funded by a bursary through our PDBI. So this is an example how important the partnership of and mutual understanding is between the two functions, because we can actually utilize each other, of course, even including the insurance company in our risk discussions. Another risk, lack of supply security. Locally, we've produced a practical risk framework assessing the criticality of items for direct material, critical production supplies. Why? Well, first of all, we need to understand our risk chain, our supply chain network from a risk perspective, both from a production but also from a liability point of view. So we need to be able to focus on the critical aspects and again reduce the risk exposure on our business interruption should a supply fail. And it's again something that we can use towards our insurance carriers to document how we work with risks and the effort we're putting into reducing them in a systematic and structured manner. So all of this is really to demonstrate to insurance carriers how we work with risk management. Why? Well, because we actually become a much more attractive risk to the insurance carriers. We're doing something actively to reduce the risk. And we are able to document it. We can explain it to them. And it will certainly benefit us when we come to the renewal process. As I said, we become a very attractive risk to a carrier, which then creates a possibility of reduced premiums or better conditions, or in this market we're sitting now, maybe a flat renewal. My apologies. With the Christian Hansen Group have experienced last year, what we experienced last year when we put our PDBI and liability insurance out for tender, what we did very practical, we had an insurance market day, just as you guys also are having. And we approached it from a risk perspective. So we began with our EVP of Global Operation to tell about how the XCOM supports participate in the risk management process, followed by an introduction by myself to the enterprise risk program. And then we're leading up to the business continuity setup, both locally at a plant level, but also from a more value chain point of view. We got actually very favorable feedback on the maturity, the dedication and the partnership that we were able to show between enterprise risk and insurance. Even though that we're two different departments, we really show that this is a partnership. Because we could demonstrate from an enterprise risk that we were dealing with all risk in a systematic and structured approach was actually a privilege, because we were able to provide the carriers with the confidence that Christian Hansen is a very attractive risk to them. So what about the other way? Besides providing risk mitigation in the form of insurance, how can the insurance processes support the enterprise risk maturity? Well, risk engineering visits is a good opportunity to validate our, at least property-related risks. So when we have our risk mitigations, it's actually a privilege to make tick marks, and we can get through the recommendations from the risk engineering visits, because it's actions that we may already have listed as mitigations. So any organizations working properly with risk management will, of course, take the risk engineering recommendations not already captured and include them into the risk card and be able to work with them. I think it's clear now that enterprise risk looks beyond traditional insurable risk. However, my insurance colleague and I have a great partnership in exploring new types of insurance we can actually use as risk mitigation. This includes non-damage BI, IP protection insurance, parametric based insurance, and so on. So all of this we actually are able to use and include the risk mitigations as mitigations. So to conclude on this, 2 questions. Do you need enterprise risk to assess your risk exposure and better know your need for insurance coverage? Yes, we do, because enterprise risk is cross-organizational. It takes the holistic approach, allowing us to understand the risk better. And also the fact that enterprise risk has actually more frequent appearance to the ExCom and board of directors, which can be used for both functions. And then can an effective enterprise risk assist in reducing insurance premiums and conditions? As we mature, eventually we'll be able to see concrete reflections on the insurance because we can document how we work and progress with risks in the organization. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And Lene, back to you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. It's all about getting the best of the 2 worlds, isn't it? I believe that all of us got very good insights with the broad knowledge from the 3 speakers on how to combine enterprise risk management and insurance. We will take questions as said in the end of the session. Now we will go to opening the polling questions. We will be having 4 polling questions, and we will start with the first one, which is, do you think that a combined approach of ERM and insurance world will have a bigger impact on the strategy of your company? I would ask the participants to engage in the voting, and we will then talk about the results afterwards. I can see the votes are coming in now. Please keep voting. We still are getting votes. I think we got the final poll results. Do you think that a combined approach of ERM and insurance will have a big impact? So yes is 83%, no changes 70%, and no 0%. I would like to ask you, Pauline, do you have any reflection on this answer, which is quite clearly stating the audience meaning about?
It is a large yes, and I would have been surprised if the response would have been no. Also, I believe there are still hurdles and boundaries between the 2 functions, and we need to ask ourselves if these hurdles come from the senior management or from the people performing the task, and find common grounds. As it was already mentioned also by Adrian and Thomas, we need to combine the best of both functions, which will be key for success and I would say also for survival during this challenging time. To manage a combined approach, in particular when talking to the senior management and propose the combined solutions.
Pauline, I was thinking, Adriana, do you have any reflection in relation to talking about the journey and the strategy in the companies on this polling result?
Here I am. Thank you to the new technologies, and Yeah, then you can get a little bit delayed in answering when not muting on and off. So since this is real life, my dear Lene, could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, of course, yes. It's new to everybody, also very much to me. I was just thinking if you had any reflection on the polling answers here, because you have some broad experience in terms of the ERM journey in relation to strategy.
Oh, it is important to have a combined approach. So because it's part of the name, it's enterprise risk management, and enterprise risk management is everything. It's a strategy. It's looking at the risks, is working together with others, is having good mitigation strategies. And today, even if it is still a hard one, is insurance is still there. So it remains an important one. And so I believe for me is you start with looking at your risks, and then in order to find a right answer to your problem, you engage also with insurances. And if we have done that, you look at the strategy, or even if you do it upfront, but when looking back at the strategy, and referring at the pre-strategy risk management I've been talking about, this is mainly about a scenario-based working. So you are going to think about scenarios like a pandemic that can occur, a new one, let's hope not in the near future, or that there will be a cyber incident or a terroristic attack with a cyber incident. So you're going to work on scenarios, and even in those scenarios that can result in a deviating outcome of your strategy as the one that planned before, as to direct it again in the direction that you want, you will have to take actions. And one of those actions can also be insurance. So there again, so whether you are in the post-strategy or in the pre-strategy approach, the cooperation with ERM, between ERM and insurance, is very important. Even if it is not in the same department, it is important and will become even more important.
So thank you so much, Adriana, for your reflections on this polling result. I think we will go to polling question number 2, which is the evolving risk management environment calls for new skill sets. What do you consider as the 3 most important skills for the future risk manager? I believe the poll number 2 will come up on your screen in a second. There might be a slight delay in the polling questions. I think we have a small technical issue. Please, Thomas, may I ask you to just to verify the polling question answers on the question number 2 and reflect on those?
Certainly, Lena. I see that there's a majority that believes that negotiation skills and the ability to influence people, as well as good communication and presentation skills, are the most important skills for future risk manager. And I'm also emphasized during the some of the presentations is that we really need to go and sell the process to the organization. We need to get them to buy in, and it does take the communication skills and presentation skills. It's a journey that we are on, and first of all, you need to let them know what is this new process enterprise risk, to get them to get on board, see the benefits it's actually providing during this particular journey. You'll see in the beginning, you'll probably start off with some of the more traditional risks that we can all identify quite quickly. Something happens to our production sites and so on. But eventually, as we get more mature, as the organization become more comfortable, you'll see that we're actually able, as I said, and also as Adriana said, we'll break down walls and we'll be able to bring people together, discuss this risk cross-organizational. And again, as we get more mature, we'll be able to bring in some of these risks, which are legacy risks, which is known in the organization. However, we now see that there's this comfortable environment that they can bring these legacy risks forward, and the senior management and the board is also prepared to take these on board and discuss them. So yeah, I'm not surprised about the negotiation skills, the ability to influence people, and the communication and presentation skills. And also, just to conclude, the communication and presentation skills is, of course, also relevant when you go to the XCOM senior management and the board and present to them the risk picture. So, thank you, Lena.
So, thank you, Thomas, for these words. Would you also like to comment, Adriana, as you touched on exactly that in your presentation?
And you see, I learned quickly. I'm back earlier than the first time. So I retained from the polling good communication, which for me goes without saying. So it's about people business. Risk managers is about understanding. So it's important to have a good communication skill. Since it allows you to relate to your stakeholders, and that is of growing importance into the future. Addition, the presentation skills, yes, it's coming more and more into the agenda of the board. So presentation skills will be important there. Also important when talking to others in or outside of the company and adapting your language over there. Your negotiation skills, I think this goes hand in hand for me with the first one, what has been voted as important. Negotiation skills and ability to influence people. Yes, because also here it's people business, and it's important, like I mentioned, the tango metaphor. We are moving together, ourselves as risk managers and all our stakeholders, internal and external, to face the same risk language, and we are in it together, and we have to do it together. So we have to give and to take, we have to negotiate, and we have to influence each other in a positive way. And yes, would I have done the polling, strategic thinking capability? So yeah, let's be prepared. It will be more and more important. You can't do without it, and especially if you look at the enterprise risk management approach, you have to be forward-looking, strategic minded, and yeah, it's about that shifting from post-strategy, implementing and seeing the risk towards that pre-strategy and being in the strategy setting. So, but we will get there together. Thank you.
Adriana, for these reflections. Now we will go over to the polling question 3, which is, do you think that collaboration between ERM managers and insurance managers will increase in the next 12 months? Please do also engage in this polling questions. And the polling question is coming in. So you will be able to answer yes or no changes or no. At the moment, we have a majority on the yes vote. We're not. So 75% is saying yes, we do get a change or increase between the collaboration. No, now it's changed a bit. The poll is not finalized. 64% is saying yes, we will have a bigger collaboration. At the moment, still 1/5, 20% says no. So we ended up 67% yes for a broader collaboration, 20% no, and 30% no changes. I would like to ask you, Pauline, if you have any reflection on this result?
Actually, it's a very interesting results. I think it will certainly help the company to achieve this target. But I think the purpose is not to significantly affect the strategy or redefine the wheels, if I may say so. And hopefully this collaboration between ERM and insurance will help the company to change its approach to risk, but yeah, not necessarily to change the strategy of the company.
Very much, Pauline, for this comment on the polling question. Then we will take the polling question 4, the last one, which is, where do you see senior management will have its focus in the coming 12 months? Please do start the polling. It's nice to see the participant engaging in the polling. So answers are coming in, but not finalized. So will the senior management have its focus on insurance premiums, enterprise risk management, the synergy between the two functions, or the cost savings? So the poll is finalized. Very interesting. We have 43% voting for the answer 3. Risk management function will become a synergy of enterprise risk management and insurance management. And we have a 29% on the possibility of the first question primarily on enterprise risk management, and 21% primarily on insurance premiums, and 7% on that risk management function will be downsized due to costs. I would like to ask you, Thomas, which talked about the synergy of the collaboration, if you have any reflection on this result in the polling.
Thank you, Lene. I'm really pleased to see that the majority believes that there will be a synergy between enterprise risk and insurance management in the coming period of time. So the valuable sharing between these two functions. Also happy to see that the high number of participants or votes going on the primarily on enterprise risk management, because it's still something fluffy for some senior management and also boards, and some consider this an exercise which may start as a board exercise in order to make some tick marks, and it does require this journey that we are on and the maturity in order to really get the understanding and what it can benefit to the organization. I'm really thrilled to see that the risk management function will be downsized due to the cost savings. Only got one vote, so pleased to see that. Thank you,
Thomas. So thank you for engaging in the polling questions. Now we will start on the Q&A session. I think it's on its place to at this stage to thank the speakers for their input, and I'm sure there will be some questions from the audience which we are able to take now. Sorry, I have to learn as well. I did not unmute. We will take the first questions, which is to Pauline. Do you currently use any art solutions? Could you please give an actual example? Or do you have any one key practical process to enable the cooperation between ERM and insurance function? Pauline?
Yes. So yes, I use art solution, but it's mainly for mergers and acquisition transactions. So special risk, as I said earlier, just to give an example, the tax risks, for example. I have conducted as well on a regular basis captive feasibility. I do not have a captive in the company I'm working with at the moment, but yeah, I did look into this. But as I said, art product should be a substitute to traditional insurance. And once again, it's my point of view, but it cannot replace traditional insurance. And I hope and really expect that new art product will emerge. But yeah, it will just be complementary to traditional insurance. As to the second part of the question on a key practical tool or process, I mean, started working on risk registers is a good basis. Understanding as well the role of the ERM function and the insurance management function, because in the end of the day, we are talking the same language around risks, and then come up together as one voice to the senior management. I think is a good basis to start.
Pauline. We have another question here. I think that would be for you, Thomas. It was mentioned that top management and the board should be more involved in risk management. What forms of involvement is the most common and appropriate? What risk management areas should the board focus on? What do you think about that, Thomas?
Oh, Lene, thank you, and thank you for the question. What the board should really be focusing on, according to my perspective, is that enterprise risk and risk management is living in the organization. Of course, they should be concerned about the risks, but from the board, it should be processes is living in the organization, that it's part of the business processes, that there's focus on the risk mitigations, that the risk mitigations are complete, and really also to underline the importance that it's not a board exercise. It's not to satisfy the board with a check mark exercise saying that, okay, you have done your annual review of your risks, so you can go back and then come back again in 1 year. Should be regular involvement, quarterly updates, both on the effectiveness of the enterprise risk program, and of course also a risk review looking into those risks which has been agreed are relevant for the board to be briefed on. So really to ensure and underline the importance to the senior management, to the ExCom, that focus should be on that risk management is living in the organization. Thank you, Lena.
Thomas, thank you very much. Another very, very interesting question: how can we quantify the synergies of enterprise risk management and insurance working closer together? Adriana, I would like to address this to you.
Okay, thank you, Line. When people say quantifying in risk management, it's always a, how should I say, tricky or difficult thing. I would say two things. First of all, look at your board and your senior management and try to understand what they are looking for. If it is only quantifying, try to, first of all, convince them about the non-quantifiable part. So, but it's this having really looking at the maturity of your company, of enterprise risk management. So, first of all, the non-quantifiable. It's by working together, your reputation will improve because it will give visibility, it will increase your foundation. I prefer to say foundation instead of a culture that you need to grow in risk management. Synergies, quantifiable. The exercise is, for me, you will do it in the right sequence, is that you really will look at what matters to your company, what can jeopardize the realization of that, what matters. And then as soon as you know that, you're going to look at how to avoid that it happens. And you are going to do that together with others and to find out whether insurance is the best solution or not. It can be for one company, but it can be not the case for another company. So there comes the cost of risk and what is the purpose. That is the sequence to be done. First, identifying what is important and then how you are going to solve it. And maybe where today you are taking out a risk insurance, that tomorrow you will look for something else. But it's not a answer that you can take out of the shelf. It's really looking into what is the DNA of your company. And by doing so, you will get a conversation.
Very much, Adriana. We have so many interesting questions from the audience. It's really nice to see. However, I think we only have one question left because of the timing, and that would be: how can one convince the management that ERM and insurance are heavily independent? I think, Thomas, that would be something that you might have been working with.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the question. The convincement to the management that enterprise risk and insurance are heavily interdependent is to let them to understand that how we can use insurances to risk mitigate or to mitigate the quantifiable risk exposure, the financial risk exposure to a particular risk. That's definitely something that is a clear link for them to understand. Is also to highlight that both functions, of course, are focusing towards risk that's that's the general objective of both the functions, but it's definitely to see that how we basically how enterprise risk can use insurances to reduce risks. That's one way of convincing the management that enterprise risk and insurance are heavily interdependent. Thank you.
Thomas, thank you very much. Sadly, we are coming towards an end. And the rest of the question or more question can be answered by the speakers in the networking lounge afterwards. So that's super. I just want to wrap up and point out some key points of each speakers. I would like to address Pauline's talks about identifying insurable and non-insurable risk, and of course the need for good coordination between enterprise risk management and insurance. And Adriana pointed out to us how the journey and the proactive enterprise risk management is changing, and the insurance as the insurance environment and business environment as well, and the importance of the overall preparedness for emergence risk. And also pointing out Thomas's points on that this success really requires a partnership between enterprise risk management and the insurance management function, and so that the values of the organization are protected in an effective way. The situation calls for coordination. I think we learned today close relation between the ERM risk managers and insurance specialists. So I would really like to thank the speakers for their extremely interesting input and the participants for participating in the polling questions. Please remember that we can meet in the networking lounge. Please also be aware of that you can see a replay of this session as of tomorrow for a whole week. And finally, I think the most important thing, we have a e-drinks meeting from 5 p.m. and off. I think that was the things we wanted to share with you in this session, and I really do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.